What's your y'all? Welcome back to Right at the Wire. Well, Oaklawn is opening this weekend, and it's always a fun track to play. It's a nice diversion from some of the other tracks where the fields are small. You're going to get big fields in every race at Oaklawn, which means you've got great betting opportunity. This sequence is no exception. It is the late pick five. It comprises races 6 through 10, and this is a tough one. But there's not a gimme race in any of them to speak of, really. The first one we're going to talk about is a $30,000 claimer. It's the sixth race on the card, 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up, and you can see you get another full field. This one is this is probably the toughest race, I'd say, and that's saying something for all of them. Pray for Peace. I'm a little concerned about the class level, but this one is coming off a pretty impressive win, and really the only thing you have to say is, well, why go to the bench? And has been on the bench for a little while. You do find that with quite a few in here that the work tabs are a little suspect, but when they're claimers, they don't work as often, so you sort of have to be a little forgiving. Pray for Peace, I thought was pretty interesting. I didn't like any of the early speed in this race, so Pray for Peace, just sitting off of them, I think offers is probably just as good as anybody else. I did find it hard to separate horses in here. El Rey Dorado is one that looks like the tab is good for Chris Hartman. He's very good with horses coming off the layoff, and just seems to be a good fit here. And at 12 to 1, you're getting an excellent price. And did have a pretty consistent tab, and that was something I'd like to see. You couldn't find in most of these. That would tell me the intent's pretty good for El Rey Dorado. And again, a good class fit, so we'll throw him in the mix. WW Scout's Honor is my selection. I will say, amongst the four pace pressers, it was hard to separate them, to be very honest. WW Scout's Honor is a seasoned performer. They all are, really. But he has a very positive record at Oaklawn, and looks to be a very good fit here. And again, just everything. He's just a very logical contender. Lundberg, same thing. It was very difficult to separate the two of them. I just give a little bit of edge to Scout's Honor for the post, and maybe a little classier. He's getting some significant class relief in this race. Lundberg is too, but like I say, those two were hard to separate. Really the four pace pressers, I had great difficulty in separating any of them, and that should tell you how tough a race this is. So hopefully we'll get a price on, but we're definitely going to spread. Excuse me. Finally, Payne is well, he's 10 years old and he's got a great record at Oaklawn, and that's certainly something. He is coming off the bench, and at this stage, the older horses, that's when you want them, when they're coming off a layoff. We don't worry about the work tab or when they're older, because they usually it's not overly necessary that they work them. So it's not as much of a concern as you might have elsewhere. The problem I have with Payne is I don't just, first of all, 3 to 1 coming off the bench for a 10-year-old. And secondly, I just don't know how much pace there's going to be to run to. I think this race will be run more on the front end. So Payne certainly is a horse you can use. I would debate whether or not I put him in the mix or not. We're going to tentatively put WW Scouts Honor on top, but this is a race, because it is the first in the sequence. Certainly, any scuttlebutt you can get looking at the paddock should inform your decision, but this would certainly be a race that we would want to spread. Second leg of the late pick five is a maiden special weight at 100,000, seventh race on the card, run at 1.16 miles for the 2-year-olds. And so we've got a full field at 12, as we do with every race on this card. You got to love that. So you got a lot of great betting opportunities. Of course, it's a 2-year-old race, and so you just don't know Really, the ones that I've passed on are ones that just I didn't see enough from their initial effort, or I don't like the tab leading up to this one. And of course, with 2 year olds, you want to see that steady stream of works. And when you don't see it, when they see those gaps, I mean, that's the time you probably want to pass. Uh, just to talk about, Crupper is one I kind of went back and forth with. Just showed a little bit, little zip early in his debut, and I think the extra turn helps. As certainly his pedigree says, root. But the last couple of works, not too encouraging, and Donnie Von Hamel is only 5% with first time at a root. So I decided to pass a little bit of an underlay with Crupper at 8-1. Uh, you talk about the favorite, Our Magical Moon. First of all, at a field of 12 2-year-old maidens, the horse has to really show me something in the pedigree, the connections, the work tab, or the running lines. Something to indicate that this horse warrants that type of favoritism in a field of 12. And be honest, Magical Moon, while has been knocking on the door for a couple, hasn't won yet, and obviously that's the longer it goes, the more doubt creeps in. The last one race though was encouraging because this horse displayed an ability to rate, and had in the couple prior to that seemed to be very one dimensional. Just try to take them all the way and couldn't quite do it. So that's certainly favorable. I like the pedigree. Certainly good magic with Malibu Moon underneath. The dam has 40% 2-year-old, so they can win early. And like I say, I do like the fact that this horse rated right off the bench, but it's still only a second place finish. And the career high off the bench is probably the most positive sign. The career high Brisnet figure, and you always like to see that. So I certainly think Magical Moon is a horse you have to consider in this race, but at 7-5, I think has to be considered an underlay, just given given the record of not getting it done over 3 starts. Hoss and Boss I thought was interesting. This is the $300,000 not this time purchase. Turf to Dirt is an 18% angle for Hartman, and I think he may just wanted to have got this horse a root. Sometimes, as we've mentioned before, early in the 2-year-old season, it's awful hard to get 2-turn races, and that's why a lot of times on the Derby Trail you see horses who maybe struggled a little bit around 1 turn, but as soon as they get around 2, they become a different animal. And Hoss and Boss is certainly bred that way and showed a little early foot, so perhaps can build off of that moving to dirt. I mean, it was a pretty decent effort, faded late, but maybe getting back to dirt, we'll see a little bit more out of Hoss and Boss. Promised a little something, I thought, and at 10-1, I think that's a pretty good price. Bourbon Coma is this one also had some gate issues, but still showed a little turn of foot, and I kind of like that. When despite trouble, and if you go back and watch that race, just got absolutely slammed at the break. And you have to wonder sometimes that's the jockeys knowing who they got to watch out for. Bourbon Coma is by Vekoma, who's a very big 23% first time out of the gate. And I like the fact that John Ortiz, who was doing really well at Churchill, incidentally, before coming to Oaklawn, so I think his barn is humming right now. I like the fact that Ortiz put this horse right back into a work 2 weeks out of the box. So I think Bourbon Coma might be sneaky good in this spot, and at 15-1 offers a pretty good price. Talk about a couple of the others before we talk to my selection. Owie, number 5, was another one. Wasn't bad at the distance in the debut, but did fade late, and it was at a lower class level. And that always bothers me when horses move up from maiden claiming to men's special weight, and you see them fade like that. Then what are they going to do when they get into a higher class level? And it's not like this was a maiden claiming for like 150,000 going into a maiden for 100,000. It kind of wasn't that. So Howie may be a little bit underlay at 5-1, but I certainly think a move forward is possible here. Mean Stepper, I thought, was another one that this one cost 155 grand. The stud fee was 175,000. That's always a concern. You never like to see that. Uh, and this one too had gate issues in the debut, but the works prior indicate that there was some talent prior to that debut. So that kind of gives me the feeling that maybe it was just a bad race, and this horse maybe has a little bit more to offer than perhaps we thought. On Ron Moquette, he's not great with first time at a route. He's only 4%. Uh, but I do like the fact that this horse has a really steady tab, and I think at 20-1, this is a horse who might surprise, and probably more so for underneath in the exotics. But this is the kind of race when you've got a 7-5 favorite, you're going to get prices. And Mean Stepper might be one of those sleepers that's sneaky good in here. Into Battle is my choice. Didn't show a whole lot out of the gate, but this is Brad Cox. It's a second start, and at 8-1, I think that's a really nice price. It's Brad Cox's mo that they will move forward second time at a start, and there's just a lot of things to like about Into Battle. The price more than anything else. I don't think the 12 hole is a big deal, not at Oaklawn. And should be able to settle about mid-pack and when it's time to go. You do note there's not a lot of early speed in this race, and I don't think Magical Moon necessarily will be on the engine. You may get Crupper or one of the ones that showed early lick who had gate issues. But the pace should be moderate. That might be a drawback a little bit for Into Battle, but I just think makes the most sense in this race. And it's a good betting race. It's a tough one, to be sure, but Into Battle in the 7th. The Ring the Bell Stakes is ungraded at 150,000. It's the 8th race on the card, and it's the featured race on the day. Run at 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And we've got a field of 8. And it's pretty well balanced. You can see Skelly is the obvious speed of the speed. I don't think anybody would dispute that. And we've got some pressers as well, most notably Roll On, Big Joe, and Banishing. And then we've got horses from Off the Pace, Ghost of Midnight Spankster, and Tejano Twist. So it's a very balanced field. We'll talk about I do think this is a little top heavy. We'll talk about Skelly. What can you say at Oaklawn? He's 11 for 12 in the money, 10 wins. We all know what the problem is. If he gets out of the gate, fine. He's good to go. If he doesn't get out of the gate, well, then he's got to rush up to the lead, takes a little bit out of him, and he's left wanting in the stretch. The last couple have not been, last 3 really haven't been very good by his standards. But you have to believe that with the layoff in Oaklawn, that would wake him up. I think he's a horse that you have to use, but you do have to note that Luis Saez has gone over to Banishing, and given Steve Asmussen the size of his barn, I think that's a pretty notable defection. We'll just have to see if that being back at Oaklawn and his preferred track, the one he likes. We got to remember, this is the kind of race that Skelly runs the most in. They managed him very carefully, and when he has stepped up in class, it hasn't really gone very well for him. So it is back to a more favorable position. We just have to wonder if maybe those last 3 starts were an indication that maybe Father Time's catching up with him a little bit. But he's certainly one that you have to use. Roll On Big Joe is my pick to win this race. For RB Hess, he's 3 for 3 with Julian Leperoux, and you got to love that. It's second off the layoff. And when he came off the bench last time, I think it was a good indication that he just needed a break. His last couple prior to going to the bench, obviously he was regressing steadily with each start, and I think he was just a tired horse. Coming right back and running well, I think indicates that that he's going to be back to his old self. He doesn't need the lead, but I think it's a good bet that he's going to stay right off of Skelly's throat latch until the time is right. And because if they do let him get away, he could be very dangerous to run down. But I think Roll on Big Joe is equal to the task. I think he's a deserving favorite at 2-1, and he would be my pick. Talk about a couple of the other runners. Of course, Tejano Twist is one that it always sparks some interest. There's certainly going to be pace in this race. Skelly, I think, will run his race, and that by itself should create some pace. And Tejano Twist is a little better at 6 furlongs than he is at longer, oddly enough. So this is a good position for him. He's 20 out of 22 in the money. That's pretty damn good. The problem is the last two were out of the money back in May, and he hasn't run since. So he's been off for a while. But I think he's got a good scenario here. And the tab, more importantly, a lot of these I did not like the tab on. The works were pretty, they weren't steady. They were kind of almost at a random basis, and you just don't like to see that. Like Durante was a horse I might have some interest in, but I just did not like the tab. Banishing is another one for David Jacobson that I just don't like the tab, and you consider that this is a two-turn specialist who's now dropping back to a sprint. It looks to me like a race that they're sort of trying to sharpen him up again to go back into those two-turn efforts, maybe the Oaklawn handicap later in the year, for example. But he's a tough ask for me at 3-1. I wouldn't blame you at all if you want to put him underneath. And he's certainly just on, class alone, he probably can get into the money, but I think he's an underlay at 3-1. And at Durante, this is sort of the same thing. Dave Jacobson, he's one of those trainers you just never know. So we could all just be whistling in the wind about these two, but from the tabs I see, I wouldn't go near him for this race. And again, I think they might be a little bit of an underlay. Durante, you probably get a little bit better price, and again, I wouldn't blame you if you want to try to use for underneath. Spankster is a horse I settled on, and for one reason only. He's in good form. Now, he's coming off the bench, but he just, and he's a cut below, but he's in good form. And, he's a little long in the tooth, but, 20-1, I think because he is in good form and, and he'll be fresh, you can throw him underneath to spice up the trifecta. He's not a threat to win this race. But he's one that I would use. He might goes to midnight again. Another one that didn't really like the tab. Has a little bit of back class, but there's just a lot of horses. Second ID, Durante, goes to midnight, Banishing. They just don't look like they're in very good form. The tabs just don't speak well for them. So this will be a little on the top heavy side, and we're going to go with Roll on Big Joe in the Ring the Bell. The ninth race is the fourth leg of the Pick 5. It's a maiden special weight at 100,000, run at 6 furlongs for 2-year-olds. And again, a full field, but and again, I think this is a favorite you have to try to beat. Himothy didn't do anything wrong, really, in his first start. He just couldn't maintain the lead. He couldn't hold it in the stretch, and that's always a bother. That's always something that lingers, when horses can't finish. It may have just been the first race being a little keyed up. That's entirely possible. But you've got a full field of 12 here. And to me, it's there's not enough there that I can say this horse is head and shoulders above all the rest of here at 7-5. I just can't do it. So, do you have to use? Yeah, you do. But I just think this is an automatic bet against, and you have to try to beat. Looking at this group, there's a lot of first-time starters. Now, I want to note is, if you look at the index for you Brisnet players, you'll note Like and Subscribe and Baby Vino have both been scratched out of prior maidens, and it was both of them for veterinary reasons. That has to make you a little suspicious and wonder about their soundness. I think They both show tabs to me that say they're ready to go. If I had to choose one, I would probably go with like and subscribe. I think all the elements are there. And for Adam Kitcheman, who's pretty good with first time starters. And this would be a horse that would include. Baby Vino didn't look too bad to me, but Vino Rossos generally it's when you have to wait till they stretch out to really get the most out of them. So that would be I would if you had to choose between getting rid of one of the two, I would get rid of Baby Vino. I settled on 54 yarder. Kelly Von Himmel is outstanding with first time starters. I believe it's in the 20s percentage wise. This horse is by Violence, who's a good first time starter. And Reggae Rose, the dam, has produced 100% 2-year-old winners, 2 stakes winners. The tab looks extremely sharp. At 12 to 1, this is a steal. I think we absolutely have to go with it for the price, 54 yarder. Predator's Ball doesn't look bad either. This Lindsay Schultz, not the greatest with, it's not really her angle for first time starters, but the tab looks pretty good. And there's definitely, at 800,000, there's some intent here. So I think Predator's Ball, 5 to 1, I think you're getting a much better value in 54 yarder. But Predator's Ball might be one that I would include in the mix. This is this is another short price favorite. I think that we have to beat, and I think this is we've got a significant amount of first time starters here that I think somebody's going to take this one down, and hopefully for us it's 54 yarder at 12 to 1 or something close to it in the ninth. In the finale, we got a pretty good one. It's an N1X allowance for 115,000, 10th race on the card, run at 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. It's a full field. This is one of those classic Oaklawn type of races where, you've got to be looking at late runners. I mean, Oaklawn plays that way for the most part, and I think this is no exception. Turn Up the Trees is the prohibitive 5 to 2 favorite. This is a horse you just have to bet against. This is a horse who has only one way to go and doesn't really manage his speed very well. You know him early, but you don't see him late. He runs very quickly up front, but he has a lot of trouble sustaining it. And for that reason, you would have to consider him vulnerable here, especially when you look at all the other early runners like Nikolai, Northern Chill, and even Mischievous M. I mean, but they're so it's going to, especially Viking, who I'll talk about in a second. It's going to be very difficult for Turn Up the Trees to wire this field, and that's what he has to do. I would almost throw him out, to be honest. I'm really against him in this spot. I like Viking quite a bit for Randy Morse. He's coming in third off the layoff. I think 7.5 furlongs probably a little too far for this one last time, but did show some good turn of foot. And I think now cutting back in distance would be the answer. I think Viking is a really strong candidate in here and would be a very narrow second choice to Sweetest Sin, who I've picked on top. Now, Sweetest Sin is coming from Thistledown. That's true. But this is a horse who is, I believe, 12 for 16 at the distance in the money. I'd like to see another work on the tab, but is a very consistent horse, and that leads me to believe it's going to be fine coming off the bench. Will be running fresh. A lot of these, in this particular race, there's a lot of horses with chinks in the armor, a lot of vulnerability. So what you're really trying to do more than anything is find the horses who are, there's less wrong with them rather than more right with them. And I think Sweetest Sin is a horse that coming off the pace, there's going to be plenty of it. There should be with Turn Up the Trees and all the other front runners. Should be a very good scenario for a horse who's a pretty good class fit here, I think. Stepping up a little bit, but I think should be fine. And again, when you consider the vulnerability of the other horses, that elevates a horse like Sweetest Sin, who's coming in fresh and who has a pretty good track record of consistency. So at 15 to 1, I think you're getting an excellent price on Sweetest Sin. So that's what I'm going to go with, given the way Turn Up the Trees runs and figuring the pace is going to be pretty quick. Gummo tack for Brad Cox, I'm going to throw in the mix as well. I don't really like what I've seen, to be quite honest. This is a horse who really hasn't figured it out yet, I don't think. But it is Brad Cox, and stranger things have happened. And you're getting a late runner who's coming route to sprint. So those are really the reasons that I'm using, or I would use Gummo tack. I do not like the price at 6 to 1. This horse looks like a project to me, so I'd more inclined to look at a horse like Sweetest Sin, who's a more proven commodity. But if it's not Viking, it's Sweetest Sin. I think those are the two prime candidates in here, and I don't think you could go wrong either way. But it's a this should be a good betting race, and this whole sequence. So let's take a look at our ticket. So here's our ticket for the late pick five. This is a tough sequence, as I've said. There's you know, really the ring the bell is the only one I feel probably the most confident about. But I think this is going to pay. There will be some prices without a doubt in here. You've got some very soft favorites. Particularly in the second race, I think, as well as the second leg, as well as the fourth and the fifth. So there's definitely some opportunity to be had. The leg one, race 6, I think is the toughest to exclude anybody. We're going to use 5, so we're going to go 1, 6, 9, 10, and 12. Leg 2, race 7, we're going to go 7, 9, 10, and 12. We could go deeper in that if we had to. The ring the bell, we're going to single roll on Big Joe. I think he's the best option in here, and I see this race being won up and close to the front end. So Tejano Twist would be, it's tough to exclude him, but just seeing the way his form was, coming back off the bench, I think he's ready to run. I think he'll run a good race, but I'm just like roll on Big Joe better, and we've got to find a way to economize a little bit. So we'll go with roll on Big Joe number 6. Look for race 9. We're going to spread with 2, 5, and 8, and we'll look for a price in that one, as well as the 10th race, the last leg, 3, 5, and 6. We're going to go with another price, and I do see a lot of prices in this one, and hopefully we'll hit the right one. So that's 5 times 4 times 3 times 3. That's a $90 ticket on a 50-cent base, and I think we can get through the ring the bell with roll on Big Joe. We might be looking pretty good, and this one is definitely going to pay for sure. Hope our analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, and I wish you the best of luck as always. And certainly, if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe. And thanks to all of you who continue to support us. We're going to have more coverage from Oaklawn, as well as Santa Anita, who will be opening in a couple of weeks. And we'll take you all the way through to the end of the racing season. It's been a lot of fun so far, and I think we've still got some excitement coming up. So stick right here for content, and we'll have it for you. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.